Ladies and gents, what do we think? Arsenal versus Atletico Madrid post-match analysis. Now, it was a 1-1 draw between Arsenal and Atletico Madrid at the Metropolitano. What do we think? Well, I'm going to give you my post-match analysis of the game by myself because Cass is out at the moment, but we're going to ride solo and get it done. Now, in the game, I was expecting Arsenal to actually come through and kind of just sit back, expect to kind of invite the pressure, and then potentially go on the counter-attack and, cause some issues. But what I will say is I was actually very surprised as to how they navigated their way around the pitch, how they soaked up the pressure and then alleviated the pressure by kind of playing football. What I noticed within the first 10 to 15 minutes was that Atletico Madrid were trying to play that ball around the pitch very, very nicely, as I'm sure many of us are aware that they can actually do. So they've done that really nicely. But one thing that I also know about Arsenal as well is that their defensive setup is very, very solid. And I was very, very happy to see that despite the crowd, giving that kind of pressure and, that intimidation factor of how the Metropolitano can be, Arsenal soaked up the pressure really well. They soaked up that kind of the nerves really well. I think there was really positive play between Madueke. I think that he was charging forward. I like his directness. There was a moment where he'd skinned two players and then whipped the ball into the box. Really, really nice from him. So I thought that he had a really good game as well as Declan Rice, who was controlling the midfield. I think Gabriel and Saliba did have their work cut out for them. I'm going to start with the defence and then work my way to the front. But yeah, I'm going to say backline did have their work cut out for them. I think more so, Pierre Hincapié. Ben White seemed a little bit, shaky here and there against Lookman, but for the most part, he managed to shut him down. A couple of fouls here and there, but it's expected during a Champions League semi-final match. Pierre Hincapié, on the other hand, I found that he was battling quite a lot with the right wingers and Julian Alvarez and such, and he was getting powered on quite a lot. And I think maybe because they know that he can be a bit rash, we're trying to look for maybe a penalty that we can grab from Pierre Hincapié. But I think he held up quite well. I think he was up and down the pitch really well as well. And it was nice to kind of see him take that risk of getting higher up the pitch and wanting to swing the balls into the box, etc. It was really, really nice to see. So moving from the defence into the midfield, I think Martin Zubimendi, in my personal opinion, and again, myself and Cass are not biased on this channel. We are very, very honest. But what I would say about Martin Zubimendi is that I feel as though he played it very, very safe. And what I mean by safe is the fact that I don't feel as though he kind of pushed himself to the absolute limits that he could, especially in a Champions League semi-final against Atletico Madrid. And yeah, whether you're playing at home or away, you always have to give your best performances. And I mean, yeah, look, to be fair, he didn't put a foot wrong. He done very, very well. He's very, very tidy. And he got stuck in and he was present. But in terms of playing it safe, I just feel as though that kind of subconscious kind of mind for the opposition is dangerous for us because they will look at someone like Martin Zubimendi as a weak link, as a factor where they can kind of make an issue come out of him. Someone who wasn't presenting and oozing a lot of confidence on the pitch, in my personal opinion. But again, nonetheless, maybe I'm just being overcritical. And if you guys take a look at the highlights or watch the game for yourself, then you might have different opinions. And again, as always, make sure you comment down below what you think what your opinions are on the game, because myself and Cass love to interact with you, and we would love to know. So moving again on to Declan Rice, I think that he had a really good game as well. I think he was much more present. He was very, very stuck in, very, very physical in the air and on the ground as well. I think playing very, very key passes between the defence and the attack, as we know that he does. And what I did like very well was that when Martin Odegaard, who we will touch on in a second, when he did go off and Eze came onto the pitch, I liked the connection between Declan Rice and Eze. And I could very, very clearly see that Declan Rice, once he gets that ball on a half turn, he's looking straight for Eberechi Eze, who he knows, is going to go into that box and attack again, who we're going to speak on in a second. But Martin Odegaard, what would I say about him? He's got to go. And I'm saying this now because I love him dearly and I don't want to end up hating him. But Martin Odegaard, you do have to leave Arsenal Football Club in the very, very soon future, potentially in the summer, because I just don't feel as though he provides the level of, speed and accuracy and intensity that a Cam should be doing, And someone like him, who's our captain as well, I mean, it's poor from him. Like in a game like that, he's taken off. And it just tells you everything that you need to know. That as soon as Eze came on, we were making chances. We were causing danger. He was more direct with the ball. He was screaming, oozing confidence on that pitch with that ball. I mean, potential penalty that was given for Eze, but then of course it was swiped off by VAR. But nonetheless, it's the fact that he'd have to be in the box to even receive that, or to even have a potential chance at receiving that kind of penalty. But For Martin Odegaard, I think, again, just like Martin Zubimendi, very safe. I think very, very lackluster in certain ways because, he's that kind of string between the midfield and, getting the final touches through for the strikers and stuff. But, again, didn't put too many feet wrong, but I'm expecting more from my captain. I think the wingers played very well. I think more so Madueke. And again, like I said, he was in those bursts into the box, causing danger, being very direct. On the flip side of that, Martinelli, I don't think it's time for him to go. If he does go, I totally understand. But what I was inquiring about with Cass was that what would he think about in terms of Martinelli being a backup for a first team left winger. And Cass was open to the idea, and so am I. But I just don't think that Martinelli is your starting left winger anymore, not only in the Premier League, but in the Champions League as well. And as we've seen in the Premier League, he's a very dynamic and impactful, and even in the Champions League, substitute that comes on. But I think taking Leandro Trossard out the side and then putting Martinelli as a backup left winger would be nice. And to get some first team action from a new, fresh face at the club would be an interesting kind of dynamic for him as well, because it'll push him further, I'd imagine, as a professional. But I think he could have done a lot more. I think he was very, very absent. Played it very safe. The Martinelli that I've known for a couple of years now, the one that runs down the line, does a little shimmy and then just passes it back, and then it's just recycled balls all over again, and it's just quite boring and predictable. But nonetheless, moving on to Victor Gyökeres, I do think that he had a fantastic game. Obviously got the penalty, the goal, very, very good penalty. Oblak had no chance against that kind of power, and we all know that Jan Oblak is an amazing goalkeeper. I think there was bright sparks with Victor Gyökeres, especially in this game. There was a moment where he'd run down the left channel and was just charging and charging. And for a moment, I did think he was actually going to lose that ball, but he kept striding forward and was very resilient and actually managed to whip that ball into the box very nicely for Martin Odegaard, who we did touch on earlier. But unfortunately, Martin Odegaard, again being lackluster and half asleep, let the ball have too much time in that box and couldn't get the ball out of his feet quick enough, and then ended up getting blocks. But that should have definitely been a goal in my personal opinion, given that, Odegaard did manage to sort his feet out. But nonetheless, it was that run from Victor Gyökeres that sorted it. I think Victor Gyökeres getting into the box and causing that danger, and again making himself and his presence known. He's a big guy, and we know that he can muscle defenders, and he likes to have a good tussle in there. And actually, it was the tussling that got us that penalty, and the one that he scored. So I think Victor Gyökeres had a really good game today. He was very impactful. And yeah, I think the substitutes that were made were very predictable. It was good to see Saka on the pitch, and again, it was good to see Eze come on the pitch as well. And he had a fantastic game at Eberechi Eze. As soon as he came on, you could see the difference between himself and Odegaard and how the dynamic had shifted, the energy had shifted, the speed and the tempo had shifted. And that's something that Arsenal shouldn't have to be relying on to happen, late into the 60th, 70th minute in a Champions League semi-final. That should be first team type of action. And Eberechi Eze is definitely good enough to be first team action, in my personal opinion. But no, nonetheless, I was very happy with how we played. I thought that it could have been a lot worse. And I know it's easy to say, for people who don't support Arsenal, that, that's a very pessimistic outlook on your team. But at the same time, considering that no Premier League side has gone to the Metropolitano and actually won in a semi-final Champions League, you're going to kind of look at that stat and say to yourself, to be fair, we done well to score first, and we did well to retain the lead for as long as we did. Goals are conceded. It happens. It's a part of football. But the main important thing is that we come away with one goal each, and we go into next week at the Emirates, and we go again, and we're not in deficit. We don't have to kind of climb back several goals. So that's a positive. I'm trying to look at the positives here because me and Cass were having a chat off camera, and I had a few people comment on my private social media pages about my pessimism when it comes to Arsenal. So I'm trying to be very optimistic. Fingers crossed it stays that way. But yeah, overall, very, very happy with the game. I think Julian Alvarez is a player that we definitely do have to think about acquiring this summer, because what a fantastic player. He is amazing. But yeah, nonetheless, I'm very, very happy with the performance. I think we stuck our necks out very well. We took the appropriate and sensible risks. We managed ourselves very well. Minimal errors. As opposed to the previous games that we've seen in the Premier League and the Champions League. So I'm very, very happy about that. That's an area that's been worked on by Arteta and the squad. But yeah, very, very happy. Looking forward to next week. And I'm very optimistic about how that will go, considering that we are playing at home for this second leg. And it does have a psychological edge. But nonetheless, it's been myself, Asim. Cass isn't here, but I'm sure if he was, he'd be saying the exact same thing that I'm saying in terms of liking, commenting, subscribing. We appreciate you all. Thank you to everyone who tuned into the live stream. And as always, be blessed, stay safe, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.